According to the Cambridge University Press, in their work, The Art of War in Angola, the Angolese, and specifically the Congolese, used a form of martial art called Kipura. Now, it was actually used in warfare. As a matter of fact, the Europeans' inability to make the kind of dramatic, large-scale conquests led them to have to be able to adapt to the African adversaries in this war. And so did the Africans, vice versa. There were no pushovers, and the Europeans knew it. And they knew that they owed that a lot to the Jaga warriors. Although the Angolan states required military service of all their citizens, Angolan armies seem to have been professional, at least in the late 16th century. That's because there was a small group of them that were trained, highly trained, and they used also Ngolo, or if they were from the northern area, Congo, Kipura. The standard issue soldiers were referred to as the Nguza, while the elite soldiers were referred to as the Mbare, or singularly as the Kimbare. But the Portuguese referred to them as the Jaga. They were highly skilled fighters, and even on some military displays of technique, the Portuguese were very impressed by their techniques, as seen right here. Even the queen herself, Nzinga, was great at it also. And it was very obvious that these skills were obtained through very hard and arduous practice that could hone them into the kind of elite soldiers that they were. And because of this technique of Kipura, as leaps and evasions and sweeps as they attacked them with swords and clubs in one hand and using their Kipura to attack them, the Portuguese noticed that they had to fight in loose ranks so that they had room in order to use their Kipura in battle. An important fact you should know is that Kipura is a martial art based off of the fighting style of the rooster created in the Congo region. Now, the earliest form is Angola, which came out of Angola. And then later on, the more modern form came out in the Congo area called Kipura. So while Ngolo out of Angola is the parent of Kipura, Kipura is a rooster style, while the Angolans have the zebra style. But can it work in an actual fight? Yes, with proper technique and training. All along the west coast of Africa, which includes, Cote d'Ivoire, Angola, all the way down south to Zambia, as far down there, up north to Ghana, as far east as Congo and the surrounding areas, they practice Kipura, or some form of Ngolo, because it traveled with all the Bantu people as they migrated. As a matter of fact, the term Jaga is a Malay word that the Portuguese used. It means sentry or guard. Apparently, there was a colony of Malayans that were on the southern tip of Africa that they got the term from. The group that was mostly associated with the using the art of Kipura were the Jaga warriors. Jaga warriors, the Malay name that the Portuguese gave to all the Central and West African rebel warrior tribes that were known to be fierce, dangerous, and used Kipura in battle. Now, what these tribes actually were they were like a warrior clan of many tribes in the area of the Congo and Angola areas. And they fought against the tyranny of not only the Portuguese, but the Congo Kingdom, which was expanding a lot back then also. While it is true that the Jaga were originally enemies of the Congo and the Portuguese both, they later on did have quite a few of them of the groups be on the side of the Portuguese and even help in some of the slave trade, capturing slaves and whatnot. But also, many of them never allied with them at all and were fierce fighters against them in their slave trade. The Jaga were, remnant groups of many different tribes that formed together into their own warrior clan. Some were like that. Some were, like I said, it was just a Jaga was just a catch-all phrase for any warrior groups that fought against the Portuguese. So it included the Imbagala warriors, who were the soldiers of the Indago kingdom in Angola. And Queen Jinga was, until her 80s, she was quite a good fighter herself and led many battles. And all of them would also be incorporated in that term of being Jaga warriors. Think of it being like the many different ninja clans in Japan. It's well documented that the warriors in these areas used Kipura when they fought in their battles. The word Kipura itself doesn't appear often in European records because most early descriptions came from European and missionary chroniclers who didn't use African terms consistently. What we do have are records describing the practice of combat dance, circular kicking, acrobatics, initiation combat that scholars later identified as Kipura/Angola. Here's the evidence trail, such as missionary and colonial accounts from 1600s to 1700s by Giovanni Antonio Cavazzi da Montecucco, and which is his book of an historical description of three kingdoms: Congo, Matamba, and Angola. Another reference is by Antonio de Oliveira de Cardonega, which is the book called The History of Warfare in Angola. It was written in the 1680s. Both of these books were written in the mid 1600s. And in them, they both mention about combat games among the Imbangala and the Jaga that were both war training and ritual performance. And they talk about also how they would use these evasive movements as well as strikes with their feet and hands and their clubs and swords and shields. And they were very well renowned for being able to hit and not be hit. But will it really work in a real fight though? Let's take a look at the most useful kick in the system, the Kipura kick. So, imagine you a Muay Thai cat and like somebody does that to you. So used to the guy being sitting vertical with you. I'm thinking your counters are going to work right away, but you're pretty much out of range while you're getting a kick off. Like that, see? Interesting, but let's look at the mechanics of it. So here, we teach the rocker step that leads you into the Kipura kick. So the last question is, how do you practically incorporate it into your fighting style? We'll show you that with the most common technique, the 1-2. Nice little kick. Combo like this, basic 1-2. Heel, throw the jab. As you rock forward on your toe, you throw it back. So 1-2. So the first one's going to the face, right for a second. The right's going to the back. And then take you a while to coordinate. So I like to go off to an angle after I'm done. I could be like, to be right back, but I like to do an angle. So. In modern times, we see the remnants of Kipura and Capoeira in Brazil, Machete in Jamaica, Damnye in St Martinique, and even here in America, in North Carolina, there is Kicking and Knocking. All of them, were very dangerous at one time and were outlawed. That's why you see now the more civil version of it in Capoeira in Brazil. Where would Kipura be at today if not for the intervention of colonization? The art has been lost, watered down through Capoeira and Damnye, and lost even through the more brutal technique of kicking and knocking in America. Can we bring it back? That's what the Kipura Research Organization is about. The first part of this video, as you see, is about the roots. The second part will be about the migration of it throughout the world. And the third part will be about the modern applications brought to you by the Kipura Research Organization.